You don't have to. Okay. Hi.
Hey.
How's it going?
Oh, just...
Kara, how have you had any strange insect experiences lately?
Why, yes, Megan. Yes, I have.
Tell me all about it.
There's bees. They swarmed.
Bees.
The scout bees came and discovered that my building was the perfect spot for the queen to live, and so they moved her in.
Was it last week or the week before that we were just talking about how I used to have bees?
Wasn't it last week?
I feel like it was real recently.
Or maybe...
I don't remember.
Days.
What's today?
I don't even know. No, they moved her in, so we had to move her out.
Yeah.
There's a couple holes in my walls. That's fine.
So I was reading about this. Hey, this is the Witches, Magic, Murder, and Mystery podcast.
And I'm Kara.
And I'm Megan. I was reading about the symbolism of bees, and it said that if...
I'm a goddess.
That.
Body of a goddess.
That was like, body of a goddess. But it also said that bees represent like wealth and fortune and good tidings. So maybe...
I really hope so, because I lost out 3 days of business.
Yeah, she had to close for the bees.
I hope they do.
And I didn't have anywhere to go.
I hope they bring me prosperity.
I hope they do too. They owe you at this point.
They really do.
Yeah, so... But they're gone now.
They are.
So we're here.
God save the queen.
Or something.
Or something of that effect.
So this week, I have got one of my favorite types of stories.
I love it.
That is one of those, what happened to this person? Where are they?
I love it when you do these stories. It's
They're
my favorite.
I mean, I'm not happy that they happened.
No.
They're so fascinating. And this one in particular has so many weird details to it that each detail could give you a theory as to what happened. Or...
So we're going to have
or the details could mean nothing. I mean, you know, like... Okay. All right. Are we ready?
Yep, I'm ready. I'm so ready.
Okay. Joan Carolyn Baird was born in Brooklyn in 1930.
Ooh.
And she had sort of a rough childhood.
Okay.
Her parents died in a fire when she was 10, and she went to live with family members.
Oh.
So that fire was described as suspicious, but I wasn't able to find anything else about it besides that. So it would have been 1940, so it's kind of a long time to try to find too much information.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that it matters a whole lot to this story, but I do think it's worth noting that going through this like traumatic stuff when she was young maybe had some sort of impact on her later.
Okay.
There's also reports that Joan said she was sexually abused by her foster father. So she grew up, went to Wilson College in Pennsylvania, and got her degree in English literature.
Okay.
Then went on to work in publishing.
Look at her.
Yeah. She started as a secretary, but went on to become an editorial assistant. And it feels like that's impressive.
Yeah.
In the 40s?
40s,
and 50s?
yeah.
In 1954, she met Martin. Dang it. I meant to look up.
Martin, Google it.
I think it's R-I-C... Nope. It's R-I-S-C-H. I think it's Risch.
Risch.
I'm really sorry if that's incorrect. In 1954, she met Martin Risch at a Harvard football game, and they got married in 1956. Joan quit work to become a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
Okay, I gotta move. All right, so the couple had 2 children, Lillian, born in 1957, and David, born in 1959. David. Ew, David. They moved to Lincoln, Massachusetts, and just seems like they had this like picture perfect life, you know?
Yeah.
She was a stay-at-home mom. Right. And she was really active in volunteer work. Martin had a job with the Fitchburg Paper Company.
1 boy, 1 girl.
Yes. And they lived in the suburbs. And Joan talked about becoming a teacher after her kids got a little older.
Oh, okay.
Okay. There's so many details. So
I like that you had to take a breather.
It's so like, here's where it starts. And it's just like, I mean, I'm on page 1. The rest of this is all
There's
just
lots
like,
of pages,
it's
guys.
basically detailing one day. And it takes a whole lot of pages because so many weird things happened. What was that noise?
Sounded like a cowbell.
From now on,
It's blaming it on
it's like
the trash witch
or the
and
bees.
the bees. Yeah.
Maybe they're all together.
What if
what we thought was a trash witch was actually bees in your walls?
They wouldn't have been back here though.
True.
Bee merch coming soon.
Okay, so it's October 24th, 1961, Lincoln, Massachusetts. Okay, Joan is 30 years old. Lillian is 4. David is 2. Starts off like a normal day. Martin has this overnight trip to Manhattan to go on. So he gets up early, goes to the airport, flies to Manhattan.
Okay.
For this overnight thing.
Okay.
Joan got her children up, made them breakfast, and then she dropped off David at a neighbor's house. That neighbor's name is Barbara Barker, and she comes up a whole lot in this story. So she took David to the neighbor's house to stay, and then she took Lillian to the dentist. After they go to the dentist, she and Lillian go do a little shopping. Then they go pick up David. And then Joan and the kids were all back home by 11:15 in the morning.
Oh.
Okay.
Quick trip.
It's a lot of things accomplished.
Yeah.
There are several different people who were by the house that day. There was the milkman, because it was back in the day when you still got milkman deliveries.
Of course it was the milkman.
And the mailman. And they both made deliveries. And the dry cleaner came by to pick up some of Martin's suits to be cleaned. And all of them were like, we never saw anything out of the ordinary at the house. So, once they were home, Joan changed out of the more formal outfit she'd worn to take Lillian to the dentist, which I really love. Like, I had to get dressed up to go to the doctor. And
here we are in yoga pants most days.
And into a blue house dress and sneakers. How often do you change clothes during the day?
No, sometimes I don't change.
I change clothes a ridiculous amount throughout the day.
No,
if I have to be professional, I'll get dressed, and not as soon as I get home.
Oh.
I'm in my pajamas. My friend Ashley stopped by the other day. It was like 1 o'clock. She's like, what are you doing today? I was like, nothing. I'm about to go put in my pajamas. And she was like, why?
Why? Yeah.
And that's when I was like, oh, it's not normal. You're right.
You don't do that.
So anyway, she had this like look of horror on her face. Like, why would you do that? She was like, don't do that. And I was like, okay, I won't.
I will when you leave.
Hi, Ashley. She listens too.
Hey.
So Joan made lunch for her kids, then put David down for a nap. And apparently he was a really predictable napper. He always napped until 2 p.m.
Oh.
So at 1 o'clock, the neighbor who'd kept David earlier, Barbara, she brought her 4-year-old son over to play with Lillian. Because remember, she's also 4.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Lillian and Douglas played together while Joan was like in and out, pruning plants and stuff. I don't know. Okay. We'll start that over. Lillian and Douglas played together while Joan was sort of in and out, pruning plants and stuff. They said she'd put the shears she'd used back in the garage. Then right before 2, which is like right before you would be thinking David would wake up.
Yeah.
Joan took Lillian and Douglas back across the street to Douglas's house, which was Barbara, you know, and said she'd be back. She just said that to the kids. Like, she never talked to Barbara, but she just took them over there and was like, I'll be right back. Lillian said she didn't see anyone else in the area, but also she and Douglas were playing in an area where they couldn't really see Lillian's house. The houses on the street were spaced far apart. Oh, okay. And there were lots of fences and big trees.
Yeah.
So you had neighbors, but you still had a lot of privacy.
Yeah.
At 2:15, Douglas's mom, Barbara, sees Joan wearing some sort of trench coat moving quickly up the driveway with her arms outstretched. At the time, she thought maybe Joan was chasing one of the kids because she didn't realize the kids were actually in her yard.
Oh.
And she was like, I think she might be playing some type of game. There are lots of reports that say Joan was carrying something red, but that's not true. If you read the police report, Barbara never said she was carrying anything. She said she thought she could see red around Joan through the trees, but it's hard to see because of the trees.
Yeah.
That is the last confirmed sighting of Joan Risch.
Oh.
So, that's at 2:15.
What?
At 3:15, the daughter of a different neighbor gets off the school bus, and she says that she sees a strange car, maybe a General Motors model 2-tone blue car, backing out of the driveway. Uh-huh. And another resident said they'd stopped driving to let a car back out of the Risch's driveway. So it's like 2 people who are like, we've seen this car.
Yeah.
At 3:40, Barbara decides that she's going to take Lillian home. Since she assumed Joan was home, she just sort of dropped Lillian off and left. Like, she didn't go in or anything like that. She took her kids shopping, and she was back home by 4:15. Uh-huh. At that point, Lillian comes back to her house, and she's like, Mommy's gone, and the kitchen is covered in red paint. Right. So, I hate this. Lillian is 4.
Yeah.
She'd been dropped off, and she had just gone inside and was left alone for half an hour.
Well, they were at the grocery.
Yeah.
And she waited until they got home.
And I figured that she saw the red paint, or what she thought was red paint, and wandered through the house, wondering where her mom was.
Poor baby.
Her brother is still there because he's been napping.
Oh, wow.
But he started crying because his diaper needs to be changed.
Yeah.
And I guess she just waited for Barbara to get back.
Oh,
you know?
No.
Barbara called the police at 4:33 p.m. The police arrived 5 minutes later, which is nice.
Yeah.
Very quick.
Yeah, that was quick.
Sergeant Mike McHugh talked to Barbara and then went inside the house. There was blood smeared on the walls.
Oh, no.
A table was overturned, and the wall-mounted telephone had been ripped from the wall and thrown in the trash can.
Oh.
The trash can was usually under the sink, but now it was in the middle of the room. So at first, Sergeant McHugh searched the house for her body, thinking maybe she'd committed suicide.
Right.
But there was no body. And then he called for backup to search for her. Okay, how are you so far?
Anxious.
Stressed.
I'm like my palms are sweaty. Do you need?
I was about to bust into Eminem, but I didn't. Palms are sweaty. Knees weak. Okay. They put out an alert to local hospitals to see if anyone matching Joan's description had been admitted, which was a no. And they also said, well, if anyone shows up that looks like this, call us. No one ever did.
Ooh.
Barbara had called Martin's work at that point to find him and learned that he was in New York for the work trip. So the Massachusetts State Police called him to say there's an emergency. So he canceled the rest of his trip and came home immediately.
Oh.
So back to the Risch house. There were 4 letters that the mailman had dropped off that day, and those were still in the mailbox. So no one had brought those in.
Okay.
The phone book was out in the kitchen and opened to the page where emergency numbers could be written down, but nothing was written down.
Oh.
And the phone records showed that no calls had been made. But remember, the phone was like ripped from the wall,
so she couldn't have called.
It's weird. There was an empty liquor bottle and empty beer bottles in the trash. Martin said that the liquor bottle was one that he and Joan had finished off the night before, but he didn't know where the beer bottles came from. So that's weird.
That is weird.
The trench coat that Barbara had mentioned seeing Joan in earlier was still at the house, but a different jacket was missing. Her purse was there. She'd cashed a check earlier in the day when she went shopping, and based on what she had bought that day, they figured that she had about $10 left, which today that equates to about $90. So $10 went a lot farther, but I still don't know if it would be like, I've got $10, I'm going to run away and start a new life kind of thing. So then police start talking to people around the neighborhood. Several people said they thought they'd seen Joan after that time that Barbara Barker saw her with her arms outstretched going up the driveway. So Barbara saw her at 2:15. That's what we're sure of. That was for sure Joan.
Okay.
Like, no questions about that one.
Right.
At 2:45, someone spotted a woman wearing clothing that matched the description of what Joan had last been seen wearing. And they saw her with a kerchief tied like over her head and around her chin.
Okay.
She was walking along the side of the road on the north side of Route 2A, west of its junction with Old Bedford, headed toward Concord. And I'm only giving you those road names because they come up again later. I know none of these like making a map.
Yeah. Like,
So this was not inside the neighborhood, but it was near the neighborhood. And they said it seemed like she was wandering and she was kind of hunched over while she walked.
Oh.
Then, so that was 2:45. Then between 3:15 and 3:30, there's another sighting of a similarly
Yeah.
described woman, except this time they mentioned blood running down her legs, walking north on the Route 128 median strip in
Gotham.
with a W. Again, they said it seemed like she was wandering or disoriented and that she might have been cradling something at her stomach, which kind of matches the earlier description of like hunched over.
Yeah.
So then even later, around 4:30 p.m., someone describes the same woman still walking along Route 128. So that the first sighting is 2:45, the last sighting is 4:30 of this woman.
And she's still bleeding.
Yeah. So part of me is like, no one stopped to help this woman.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know that I would have either. I mean, I think of all the people I drive by.
Yeah.
And don't stop.
It could be Teeth. The movie. Oh, you haven't watched it?
I haven't watched Teeth.
She gets truckers
I will
She
never.
gets truckers to like take her on, and
I could never have been a dentist of any
she
type
takes
or a dental
advantage
assistant. Nope.
of them.
And that the premise of that particular movie really bothers me just to think about it. And I can't imagine. Yeah. Okay. So I'd like to think that if I saw this woman along the side of the road with blood running down her legs, I might stop, but I probably wouldn't. I'd probably just.
I would
you.
just.
I'd be
Yeah.
like, can you ask Will what to do about this?
Figure out what's happening. I would just Call 911.
That's all I do now. Anytime anything
I need to report
happens.
an emergency, please. I did not do it though. I did not leave my vehicle because that's where my mind will go. Ma'am, we need to see you down at the police station? No, because I just drove by her. I didn't touch her. I swear.
I know just enough to sound completely guilty of anything.
Yeah.
So investigators were never able to confirm whether or not this woman was Joan.
Well, also, who's the bloody woman wandering around then?
So that's the whole thing, is like, whether it's Joan or not, who was that? What happened to her?
A bloodied woman wandering around.
So they checked the area hospitals. They tried to track her down where she'd been, and there was also like a reservoir nearby. They searched that water to see. Never found. So they never confirmed if it was Joan, but they also never confirmed if it was anybody else. So that's like a whole other mystery wrapped up in all this. Yeah. So we still don't know who she was. So remember the car that one of the neighbors had seen, or actually two of the neighbors saw pulling out? The girl getting off the school bus saw it. Okay, so that was described as a blue two-tone car. The milkman said that he had seen a car matching that same description in the Risch's driveway 5 days earlier.
Oh.
And another neighbor said they'd seen a blue two-tone car parked on Sunnyside Lane, which is a street that intersects with Route 2A. Remember, she was on earlier. Or the woman was.
Yeah, the bloodied woman.
And that was around 4:15. She said she saw a man get out of the car, cut some branches from the nearby woods, and put them in his vehicle. So I'm immediately like, so he was cutting branches to cover up her body. That's what that was. Yeah. Right? I mean, there's no other possible explanation.
But why would you cut him so early if it's an evergreen and it's got like the bushy things on it? It's going to die. So wouldn't you want like a live one to cover it up?
Maybe it wasn't early. It was 4:15. Maybe he was covering her body up right then.
Oh, true.
I don't know.
But she's walking bloodied. She's walking blood. She's walking blood.
She's blood personified.
She is a puddle of blood wandering around.
We are terrible people.
Sorry.
So, yeah, no, I get what you're saying. But this was on that day is when they saw him cutting the branches from the woods.
Cutting the woods.
Just cutting them off. Okay, so let's go back to the scene at the house.
Okay.
Remember, there was a whole lot of blood around.
Yep.
But they couldn't really look at the blood and easily figure out what had taken place. There were smears on the wall and the floor in the kitchen and on the phone. There were 3 bloody fingerprints, but they couldn't be linked to anyone. Over the years, they compared those bloody fingerprints to over 5,000 sets of fingerprints, and they were never able to identify them.
Oh, wow.
Now, they didn't have Joan's fingerprints, so they could have been hers.
Yeah.
There was evidence that someone had tried to clean up some of the blood, but also I keep thinking about, remember how Lillian was alone in the house? Mm-hmm. And part of me is like, maybe she tried to. Like, I could picture my kids, especially around 4 years old, because that's when they they did everything I did, you know?
Yes.
And so I could see Lauren or Ella being like, I'll clean this up and Mom, you'll be so happy when I get home or whatever.
I'll get rewarded for this.
Right. And she thought it was paint. So in the kitchen, investigators thought the bloodstains seemed consistent with someone staggering around and trying to support themselves after an injury.
Oh, and that lady was hunched over.
Hunched over or holding her abdomen with blood running down her legs.
So she was just that delirious?
I don't know. I mean, we'll get here in a few minutes. We'll talk about like theories and stuff, but it is like, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
So there was also blood outside the kitchen. There was 1 drop at the bottom of the stairs and then 2 drops at the top of the stairs.
But they're just drops, not
8 drops in the master bedroom and then another drop in David's nursery. So like if she'd gone upstairs, it seems like she spent the most time in the master bedroom.
Okay.
And then maybe peeked in on David.
Yeah.
They couldn't figure out the order of it either. They can't tell, like...
Oh, yeah, she went here first and then...
You're right. And they can't even figure out, like, was she hurt upstairs and came downstairs? Or what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the most amount of the blood was in the kitchen. So there was also blood leading from the kitchen to the driveway and out to Joan's car. There was blood on the right rear fender, the left side of the hood near the windshield, and the very center of the truck, which is weird too, because the other 2 are kind of like around the edges, like maybe you brushed past it. But then this one is just like the very middle of the trunk. Why?
Yeah.
Why how?
How? What?
Why how? The trail of blood ended in the driveway. So if we're assuming that all this blood came from her and she just walked away,
right?
Why
it would
did
have
stop?
continued. Yeah.
Yeah. So did she get another car? Like... if that was her out on the road, how did she get from the house
to
the road?
Yeah.
As for the blood type itself, it was type O, which was Joan's type, but it's also the most common type.
Right.
So a state police chemist determined that while it seemed like a lot of blood, the total amount was actually about a half a pint, which did not indicate a life-threatening injury.
Oh.
Aside from the blood and a tipped-over table, the house was in order. Nothing appeared out of place, and nothing had been stolen. And the phone ripped from the wall. So those were like the main things.
Yeah.
So it's not like there was a robbery. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's just talk about this for a second.
Okay.
It's so much.
Okay.
So my head goes to some real dark places.
Uh-huh.
Like I wonder, there is something about the fact that she's hunched over and has blood running down her legs.
Yes.
That makes me wonder about a home abortion.
Oh.
Like a botched. And
but did they
and it was
find
the day her
anything?
husband left for an out-of-town visit. Which is like, could she have been trying to get this done before he got back?
Or did the little girl really go? Did they confirm that she went to the dentist?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But they didn't find any tools, though?
So could there have been a doctor involved?
That came over?
Because this was the 40s. This illegal.
Okay, so the blue car then could have been like a doctor.
Like he was there 5 days before to check on her?
Check on her, yeah.
And also,
to say whether or
as
not
a
they
doctor,
could do
he
it.
could probably
But why would
not
he
be suspected.
Why would he be cutting trees down?
I didn't think it through to that part. I'm stuck on the blood.
Or what if
legs.
he realized he killed? Like, what if he came back to check on her, realized he had like she's done, and so he like puts her in his car and is like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit.
And then maybe she got out. Like
or maybe he did
free.
Like cover her up under these branches and thinking she's dead, and then she's not, so she's just like delirious.
Well, that was at 4:15. 4:15 is when they saw him cutting the branches, and it was 2:45 to 4:30 when they see this woman. Who may not have even been Joan, but it seems like it was Joan. And maybe the beer bottles were like
to numb.
Yeah. Wild speculation.
Yeah.
I'm just like trying to figure out, I'm trying to put all the pieces together into something that makes sense.
But if
also,
she's used to drinking liquor, beer's
things.
not going to do anything.
That's true.
If it's only a couple bottles.
That's true. So, okay. Also, maybe someone just came in and attacked her.
Right.
Tried to take her in a car. I keep thinking that someone had to probably have taken her in a car from her house to the road, and then maybe she got loose from there.
And she had like superficial stab wounds.
Yeah.
In her stomach or something.
Because if she had on a coat, maybe all they could see was her legs to see blood running down it.
Right, and it doesn't necessarily she could have just been like holding her insides.
Right. So here's where things go gone girl.
Uh-oh.
There's a reporter who goes to the library to research other cases that are similar to Joan's disappearance. She checks out a book about a woman who had disappears. Apparently it was the story of the disappearance of Brigham Young's 27th wife. Which I was like, note to self, let's look up Brigham Young's 28th wife. I think, isn't he Mormon? And maybe in the time that they had multiple wives. So when she checked it out, she saw that Joan Risch had also previously checked out the book in September, so a month before this happened.
Okay.
Let's take a second to explain to the children how checking out books used to work.
Oh, yeah.
So there used to be in the front of your library book a little envelope that had a little card in it, and it would have the date, and you'd sign it.
Yes.
And so you could look on there and you could see all the people who previously checked out that book. Remember that?
Cool.
So good.
I love it so much.
That's not how it works anymore.
Actually, that cat crime book has the library book thing still in it.
I bet you're right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we saw that.
Yep.
So, okay. So that's how she could tell, Joan checked this out on September 25th or whatever. And then she looked at another book called Into Thin Air about a woman who went missing and had left behind blood smears and a towel. And guess what? Joan had previously checked that one out too. So then people start looking through the library records And they found out that Joan had checked out 25 books over the summer, and many of them had to do with murders and missing persons cases. But I mean,
she's either a murderino,
right?
Because if you looked at our Google,
mine would be the same.
If you looked at our Google history or my audiobooks,
right,
3/4 of it would be that.
I mean, her husband was like, listen, Joan was a huge reader and she loves suspense stories.
Yeah.
But this led a lot of people to be like, well, maybe she staged her disappearance. And I'm like, for years and years, all I ever read was like murder mystery and horror.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And so...
Oh, I prefer nonfiction to fiction.
If you or I went missing right now, can you imagine what people would come up with as to what happened to us?
We ran away as a couple.
Absolutely. Anyway, their story was like, oh, she'd abandoned her exciting publishing career in New York and then became dissatisfied with her life, so she staged her disappearance.
I forgot about the publishing thing. Like, she was into that stuff, though.
Yeah, she's a book person.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems extreme to me.
Yeah.
And also the timing of when she would have chosen to stage her disappearance is on this busy day where she's got like her child has a dentist appointment, and then she's out pruning the bushes outside. Like, why would you bother?
And was anyone looking into what she was publishing at the time? What if it was something similar and she's doing like market research?
Yeah. Well, I mean, she doesn't work there anymore.
Oh, yeah.
She's a stay-at-home mom. But
maybe she's writing her own book.
She could have been. I don't know. You do have to read a lot when you're going to write a book. But I don't know. It's the kids saw her with the shears cutting bushes and stuff outside. Like, why would you be out there doing landscaping on your house if you're planning to run away in like 30 minutes? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Also, did we check the shears? Did we see?
I kept thinking when I read this at first, because they mentioned how the kids saw her put the shears back in the garage.
Yeah.
I kept expecting that to come back up, but I think the whole point was
they're in the garage.
They know she they saw her put the shears away. So her friends and family said she's a loving, devoted wife and mother who would never just choose to leave it all behind. And like, I mean, it does take an extreme, like what kind of person just suddenly walks away and never has any contact with her family again? Like her kids?
Yeah.
So it just seems real unlikely.
You would think that she'd be acting a little different leading up to, I don't know though. I mean, some people just.
Well, I keep thinking about how like, I have to think of a 40s mindset woman. Because in that, or this is the 60s, I guess, by the time she did this. But like, very hard to be an independent woman at that time.
Yeah.
And so if she did want more than just being whatever she was.
Right.
What would that have been like? But also, it just seems to just never see your children again.
But she did have that life, though. She was a woman in a man's industry.
Mm-hmm. And then became a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
I don't buy that she faked her disappearance.
No, I don't think she did.
Okay, so for suspects, there's not really much.
Right.
They know her husband was in Manhattan. That's never been in question. The mailman, the milkman were both easily alibied and ruled out.
Okay.
There's this one random guy. It's a long story, but basically the neighborhood was identified as this important historic site, and they were going to call it the Minuteman National Historic Park as part of the route that British troops had taken when they marched out of Boston to begin the Revolutionary War in 1775. So Congress wanted to restore the area back to that time.
Right.
So what they were going to do, that meant removing all the structures, houses built after 1775. So a purchasing agent with the National Park Service named Robert Foster, he was going around to visit all the homes to talk about the project because they wanted to buy them.
Right.
And when he was visiting the homes, some of the women said he was
weird.
They're like, he was here too long.
Yeah.
And he had visited Joan's home on September 25th, a month before she vanished. But on the day she disappeared, he went to lunch with his supervisor at 1, and then at 3 he was back in the Lincoln area meeting a property appraiser, and all of that was verified.
What if he got her pregnant when he visited her the first time, and he's the one that did the abortion when he came back to visit that day?
Maybe. Maybe. I feel bad because I know what a hot button issue
Yes.
suggesting that she was pregnant and suggesting that she may have had an abortion is. So I don't mean it to be offensive as much as I'm just
trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I just kind of want to be like, does this fit the, you know. All of that was verified by a supervisor and two civil. Oh, there were people with him. 2 civil engineers were working with him that day. Oh, so cross that one off the list. So yeah, so we have a few things. Like there's this theory that something bad's happening out there. Wow, it's busy.
Lots of injuries.
There's this theory that she faked her disappearance. Or there's a theory that Joan was the woman with blood running down her legs wandering by the side of the road. And in my opinion, both of those can't be true at the same time. Like she wouldn't have faked her disappearance just to go wander down the road where anybody could see her.
Yeah.
Now, the woman wandering down the road may not have been Joan at all.
But also somebody figure out who that is.
That's the thing. Like, so now we're talking about 2 missing women, sort of.
Wearing similar outfits.
It seems more likely that was Joan.
Yeah.
They did a really thorough search to find her. So then it becomes a question of how does Joan go from a busy day running errands with her kids and trimming the bushes outside to wandering the side of the road with blood running down her legs within like
hours?
Yeah. The last time anyone saw her was what, 2:15? That was the last time that the neighbor saw her. And then the first sighting of the bloody lady was 3. It's here somewhere. I think like 3.
Because the last one was 4.
2:45.
2:45. Okay.
So 2:45,
3:15, and then 30. Okay.
From 2:45 until 4:30, there were kind of regular sightings. Yeah. And then, but the last time we know anyone saw Joan was 2:15. So in that half-hour period, she goes from walking up the street, walking up the driveway of her house. You know.
Yeah.
So, maybe that was my thing. Maybe the woman doesn't have anything to do with Joan.
Right.
But that's weird. And maybe Joan was just kidnapped and murdered and disposed of, and the sighting of this woman really threw off the investigation. Yeah. Like, maybe they could have found Joan if they hadn't got distracted. I don't know. I just think the woman on the side of the road was Joan. Like,
I'm
just
too.
Stuck on that.
What does that even say? Back and stop. Thank you.
But even if it's her, we still don't know how she got there. Or what happened to her.
Yeah, she somehow got from a bloody driveway cleanly to the street.
And then disappeared.
And then it's gone.
So there was road construction going on. And there is a theory that like she fell into a pit of the road construction and then got accidentally buried by the construction, which is horrific. But I'm also like, how would they not have seen her?
Yeah.
Like, how would she, but that seems to be like kind of like the overriding theory at this point. That was Joan and that she fell into a pit and got covered up by the road. I'm like, is it that easy that happens?
That's the theory? Like, that's what you're going to stick with?
I mean, nobody really knows. Martin Risch never had Joan declared legally dead. He stayed in that house and raised his children. Mm-hmm. The National Park Service did eventually turn the neighborhood into a historic site. So they actually, like, the house itself was moved to Lexington, Massachusetts. And at that point, Martin moved to a house nearby. He never changed his phone number, even though he got a lot of prank calls.
I bet.
But he was like, just in case she ever calls. Like, he still believed that she was alive. Oh. And his theory was that she had suffered some sort of amnesia.
Oh.
She had no history of mental illness, and there was no history of mental illness in her family. But when you think about the traumatic thing that happened with her parents when she was younger, and then when that happened and she was adopted, they changed her last name. And I don't know, there's just part of it that makes me think like she went through this really traumatic thing that kind of uprooted her whole identity. Like suddenly she's a different family with a different last name.
Yeah.
And I don't know, does that perhaps lend itself to some sort of crazy amnesia event.
Becomes a trigger.
But what
somehow.
triggered it? Yeah. He died in 2009, never knowing what happened to her.
Oh.
I did listen to a podcast like just this morning that was about a woman who like went missing, and then it turns out that she had amnesia, and they found her, and it was like global amnesia. She remembered nothing.
Oh, wow.
She remembered her parents from when she was a kid, but when her parents, because she was like in a hospital, when her parents went to like see her, she just started crying because she was so scared.
She didn't know who they were.
She didn't know who they were.
Oh.
The parents that she remembered were like 20 years younger.
Oh, gosh.
So it's rare, but it happens. But her case was triggered by an attack.
Yeah.
I don't know if in the 60s, like if some woman had shown up in a hospital 2 towns over.
If they would have alerted anybody.
Yeah, like
She just became a Jane Doe.
Right. I don't know. It seems like she would have had to gone pretty far. It seems like this would have been big news.
Right.
And they had already alerted area hospitals. So how far did that radius go?
Yeah. Yeah, because if she was wounded enough for that to become... I don't know.
I don't know either. This case is just like, what?
Like, because if she does die a Jane Doe, how long do they keep it until they're like, okay, nobody's claimed this body? She goes
like
into
if somebody found her dead somewhere.
Whatever. Like wherever they bury her.
A potter's field.
Or a pauper's field.
Sounds right too. Now you're making me doubt. Is Potter's Field the right way?
I think it is. I think it is.
Both seem right to me.
Pauper.
So yeah. I don't know. Also, the bloodied woman who was walking on the side of the road, she could have fallen into a pit and been buried, but that also may not have been Joan. Like we're assuming a lot of things. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, this is all assumption.
So Joan's case remains open and unsolved. And that is the end of my story.
How is this not on Unsolved Mysteries?
I don't know. It probably is.
Yeah. Well, all the years of Unsolved Mysteries, yeah. There are so many of them.
I just can't, what happened to her? Where is she? And the whole other thing is I keep being like, it was the 60s. This was a long time ago.
But
it could be that none of these things matter.
She did send the little kids over there knowing something was going on.
That was my thought too.
And they didn't get any phone calls though.
And what was she doing walking up the driveway with her arms outstretched?
Was somebody behind her? Were they...
I don't even know when they say outstretched what they mean. I don't know. But it does sound like, that was my thought too, is that she took the kids over there and was like, I'll be right back.
Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't she have taken the little one?
That's a good point. So like if she had planned, if a doctor was coming over or something like that, you think she would have waited till David woke up and then been like, Barbara, could you watch the kids for
a little bit? I've got something I've got to do. So it seems as though it was unexpected. And maybe the person was in the house already?
Like, what if that's the case? Like, she realized there was something dangerous, and so she was like, kids, go over here. I'll be right back.
Yep. And so the person left.
But if there was a danger, and she was able to take the kids and get them to another house,
why wouldn't she have stayed and called 911?
Unless
they said they were going to kill the boy.
The danger was more like, I don't know what that is.
Danger! That's a danger sign.
Was like, again, I don't want to say anything offensive, but what if the danger was like a boyfriend? And so she was like, I just need to talk to you. I'm going to put the kids over here.
Yeah.
Like maybe there'd been a problem.
Right.
And then he attacked her and then
left. And then she went and checked on the little one to see if he was still asleep because she was maybe going to go across the street to get help. And the guy pulled up and threw her in his car so she couldn't.
Like, why is there blood in the house?
Yeah. But but so like a small amount to where they think that it was more of a superficial injury than life-threatening.
And when they say drops of blood,
do they mean like
microscopic
puddles, or like if I were to like slice my finger and I'm like trying to go get like something and it slides like...
I think it's more like less than an inch, like an eighth of an inch, if I can remember the numbers of what I read. Like it's really tiny little drops. So there's a drop at the bottom of the stairs, 2 drops at the top.
But it's not
8 drops in the bedroom.
We don't know. I was gonna say it's not like smeared everywhere.
There was just smeared in the kitchen on the walls.
Because you would think if it's like on her legs dripping down, it would have been like smeared by her foot or something.
That's one thing they said. There were no footprints in the blood, period.
Because if it's like dripping down her stomach, it's gonna be more of a puddle than a drop.
And also, if she's at that point bleeding so much that it's running down her legs, you'd think there'd just be more of it.
Yeah.
Unless it started upstairs, then maybe it got worse by the time she got to the kitchen. And then it was all over the kitchen.
Yeah.
And then she's just so, like, in shock or whatever that she's trying to clean it up.
And she's trying to, like, get the phone book, and she gets the phone and, like, falls, and it rips it out of the... But why was the trash can...
And how did she get from the house to the road?
Yeah.
But maybe she didn't.
Walking.
Maybe she didn't get from the house to the road.
Yeah.
Maybe she was attacked and taken away, and the woman on the road has nothing to do with this.
This is true. And we're back.
It makes me crazy. This is right up there with the Solder children in terms of like, where are they? How does someone just fall off the face of the earth?
Fairy aliens.
Was she abducted by aliens?
Yeah. Is it like the 411 missing persons?
Good Lord.
Where you walk out into the woods and you're gone. But there was a suspicious car. Yes. Unless aliens are now driving cars. We don't know.
And then I have so many questions like, was that car ever seen again? Did they ever track down who that car belonged to? I mean, I think not for it to be listed in the story as much as it is. Like, I think if they were like, and that car turned out to be this person, then it would be ruled out. But I never saw anything like that. So, there you go.
Great.
Joan Risch.
Gone.
Where?
Gone. Into the nowhere.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
If you guys have heard of that story and have heard any other theories, or if you've
your
taken all the rambling here and come up with your own theory, I would really like to know what it is.
Yes.
I just need more things to think about because it's bothering me so much.
Yeah, now we're just sitting on this pile of information that's getting us nowhere.
And it's so much information.
There's
so much. There's so many details.
They had a lot of evidence, but nothing. No conclusion.
So, if you have theories, you can email them to us at witchesmagicmurdermystery@gmail.com.
Yep.
And we've also gotten so many of your stories and creepy little things that have happened to you or creepy little things from your hometowns, and we love that.
Oh,
so
yeah,
please
we love
keep
hearing
sending
from
those
you.
in.
Yeah, you can DM us or email us. It's so much fun.
You can find us on Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Witches Magic Murder Mystery.
You can find us on YouTube.
Oh my gosh, hey YouTubers.
You can also join our Facebook group. It's really fun. There's more people joining all the time. It's always fun.
And everybody always says hi when they come in.
It's so cute.
I love it so much.
You guys are like, hi, I love your podcast. And I'm just like, hey, I love you too.
So glad you're here.
It's a Witches, Magic, Murder, and Mystery podcast discussion group if you're looking for that on Facebook. It's a private group, but you can join. You just have to answer a few questions to prove that you're not a
person.
Jerk.
Yeah, and answer those questions because we're just going to let you sit there if you do.
There's 3 questions. It's not hard.
No, it's simple.
Okay. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. And we'll talk to you later.
Okay. Goodbye.
Goodbye.